ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नमस्ते मेरे प्यारे दोस्तों, माय डियर फ्रेंड्स। This is fourth video on Viveka Chudamani of Adi Sankaracharya. This is a very important holy book of Vedanta. This video starts with verse number 34. तमाराध्य गुरुं भक्त्या प्रहवश्रय सेवन्नहि प्रसन्नं तमनु प्राप्य परछेन ज्ञातव्य आत्मानः. Worshipping that Guru with deep devotion, when he is pleased with your surrender, humility and service, approach him and ask him to explain what you must know. It is clear that no amount of inquiring into or discussing with a teacher is of any avail unless the student has taken enough time to tune himself up to the teacher. The essence of satsang lies in perfect attunement at one ment. Spirituality is not something that we can start discussing and arguing among ourselves to while away an idle hour. It is to be understood in an atmosphere of peace and tranquility, for this understanding is an attempt at comprehending the deep experiences of the Master, expressed not so much through his words as perhaps through the ring of sincerity that the words carry when they come from his heart throbbing with his own nishtha. Therefore, Sankara here explains how a seeker should approach the teacher and learn. First of all, to love him, trust him, and later on, through love-inspired acts of service, become receptive and establish an intimate rapport filled with reverence. Such a relationship alone will yield results. Therefore, Vedanta is almost overemphasizing the method of approaching the teacher. These days, unfortunately, we find seekers who think nothing about calling over the phone to inquire from the teacher at the other end of the city about the goal of life, the path, the means, and so on. Such a telephone tuition is not possible in spirituality, and the seeker of a spiritual life and religious truths is asked to approach the Master in an attitude of reverence and surrender. Then alone can the teacher acquaint the disciple with the knowledge of the self. In this verse, it has been indicated very clearly that seekers should not misuse the teacher and discuss with him secular questions or domestic problems. It is almost prohibited. He should be asked only about the special knowledge of the self in which he is perfect. Verse number 35. Swami namaste natlokabandho कारुणे सिंधो पतितं भवाब अब्धो मामुरुद्धे आत्मीये कटाक्ष दृष्टया हृज्वाति अति कारुण्य सुधाभिवृष्टया. O Master, O friend of those who reverentially surrender to thee, thou ocean of mercy, I salute thee. Save me, fallen as I am, into this sea of change with a direct glance from thy eyes which rain nectarine grace supreme. Characteristically oriental in style, the poet in Sankara here extends himself beyond the pale of the philosopher in him. Any estimate of Sankara as a philosopher cannot be complete without recognizing the poet in him, for there are moments when, even while writing his commentaries upon the Upanishads, he forgets that he is a philosopher to whom economy of words and precision of expression should be a religion. At times the poet Sankara outranks the philosopher Sankara. This verse is an example where he uses expressions full of hyperbole. The modern newspaper reading generation may not easily appreciate the poetic beauty of the verse unless it is held up and made to notice it. This is a verse that provides the seekers with a perfect prayer addressed to the Guru. Prayer is not begging, although in all the religions of the world today it has come together almost a scandalous and painful meaning of beggary. To beg of the Lord something or the other for the sake of which we chant and sing glorified words of praise along with offering sweets and candles is an act of pulling down the edifice of the immortal and the perfect to the level of desire-ridden human creature. God in his own glory needs none of our glorifications, nor has he any desire to partake of the objects that the devotee in his love can offer him, he being the giver of all and ever the perfectly satisfied. Yet how is it that every prophet, irrespective of the place and the period of his manifestation, has invariably advised his devotees to approach the Lord with offerings and prayers? In the sayings of these prophets, the eternal masters of the world, we invariably notice that they have emphasized the idea that God is not purchasable, nor is he available for one's persuasions to be an ally in one's animalistic activities, but a true devotee is advised to surrender himself at the feet of the Lord through prayer, love, and devotion, in order that during the surrender the nobler and the diviner in him now lying dormant may come to manifest itself. Here is a trick of stooping to conquer. While the loving devotee prostrates to the idol, he also surrenders his ego, the vanities of false values in him, and his attachments to his body, mind, and intellect. It is these false attachments that lower one to the level of an animal and effectively screen one away from one's true divine nature. The surrender of the ego is the unveiling of the divine in oneself, and the degrees to which the divine is manifest, to that degree the individual raises himself in his potency to face life and to remain equanimous in all circumstances. Here a Vedantic student is asked to surrender himself to the Guru and to praise him in Kirtan and serve him with meek surrender. This prescription is not meant to make the student intellectually a slave to the teacher, but these practices, when pursued for some time, easily make the student fully tuned up to the teacher's heart. What the teacher has to convey is the experience of the transcendental, and as the infinite cannot be defined in finite words, the words of the master can echo their message only in a bosom that has been stilled in complete love. Any discordant notes arising in the bosom of the disciple create disturbances which molest, rape, and disturb the true significance of the scriptural words used by the Master during his discourses, in order that we ourselves may not create any discordant notes and destroy the harmony. We as students are asked to serve and surrender, to pray and worship at the Master's feet, courtesy of approach and questioning. Verse number 36. दुर्वार संसारद वाग्नि तप्तम दोधूयमानं दुर्दृष्टवातहि भीतं प्रपन्नं प्रपाहि मृत्यो शरण्यमन्यद्यदहं न जाने. I am being roasted in the blazing infernal fire of change. I am being tossed by the cruel storms of misfortune. I am terrified without and within. O Lord, save me from death. I seek refuge in Thee, for I do not know of any other harbor wherein to seek shelter. A comparison of the rhyme and rhythm of this verse with those of the previous one gives us an idea of the mastery of Sankara's pen in poetry. If the former is a melodious flow of peaceful tranquility, a flow that removes all the clogs of the heart and allows it to move freely into molten love and liquid surrender, this verse in its brisk trot exhibits in its very rhythm and sound an irresistible impatience and pressing urgency. The first line in the verse explains the dangers to which the seeker is exposed, while in the second line we have an indication of the dangers that he realizes are besetting him from within. In the outer world of contact with things, he is overwhelmed by sorrows of an ever-changing pattern, while in himself he recognizes an endless storm caused by his likes and dislikes, his love and hatreds, his hopes and disappointments. These two lines beautifully summarizes the experience of finitude, which is the lot of every seeker before he enters the hall of wisdom. It is only when an individual develops his sensibility subtle enough to recognize these weaknesses in life that he comes to feel such a pressing urgency for liberation. While he experiences this, he comes to demand of the Guru safety and shelter from the threatening cries of death with their poisoning evil experiences in life. We should not construe death to mean only the experience of dying, which is the lot of all beings, but it is to be understood in its broadest sense as the poison of finitude. Every moment there is death as each experience dies away, and out of its ashes springs the next circumstance to be experienced. The disciple is asking for guidance to the guidance to the realms beyond death, a state of living in which the experience of life is the continuous, homogeneous bliss absolute. This verse again is a prayer addressed to the Guru, coming from the bottom of the student's heart, thereby making his attunement with the Guru's perfect and complete. Verse number 37. Shanta Mahanto Nivsanti Santo Vasant Valoki Hitam Charnanta Tirana Swam Bhimam Bhavarnaum Janaha Nahe Tunna Anne Anyapi Taryantah. There are peaceful and magnanimous saints who live like the spring season for the good of humanity. They have crossed the dreadful ocean of finitude. Through their own efforts and with no ulterior motives, they also help others to cross it. A man of full realization instinctively becomes a lover of the whole universe. Like spring, his is a love which demands no cause to flower into a wealth of blossoms. He who has discovered that the self within himself is none other than the all-pervading consciousness which is non-dual is instantaneously discovers it to be in the core of all pluralistic forms around him. Living as he does in this intimate understanding of oneness, he cannot but love others as his very own self. In his case, universal love is not an art to be practiced, not a formality to be followed, nor a goal to be reached. It is his very life breath. This can be brought within the understanding of the laity through a comparison. There can be no occasion for you to feel a constant hatred for any part of your own body. Even if your hand or your leg gives you a dose of pain, your anger towards them cools down when you realize that they are but your own hand or leg. For instance, if the finger of your right hand accidentally pokes your right eye, it is a case of one part of your body giving pain to another part of it. These can be moments of terrible protest of anger mixed with pain, but almost immediately you realize that it is your own forefinger that is the culprit, and you cool down to a spirit of mercy and tolerance and paternally ignore both the offender and the offended. It would be foolish to punish the finger for the pain to it would be more pain to yourself only. Similarly, when one has realized that the reality within him is the pith and substance that constitute all others in the universe, love and kindness are natural and continuous in his bosom for all in the world. On understanding the essence of truth in ourselves, we gain a freedom from the sense of finitude which which was ours to so long as we identify ourselves with the body, mind, and intellect. Since these disturbances can no longer affect a man of perfection, it is one of the surest symptoms of knowledge and saintliness if we can observe an individual who is under all provocative circumstances infinitely at peace with himself and with the world. Therefore, a saint, therefore, a sant is a man of true broad-mindedness, which is the natural outcome of kindness, tolerance, etc. This is the flag of realization. To say that a Mahapurusha, after realization, casting off his desires, will retire totally to a dark cave in the Himalayas to count his days of forced existence in his corporeal form is fallacious. He may dwell in the cave or may walk about in the marketplace. Where he lives is a matter of no concern to him. Wherever he be, whether he in a jail among criminals or among devotees in a temple, irresistibly, instinctively, he will spread around him an aura of knowledge, light, cheer, joy, peace. It is his very nature, just as heat is the nature of fire, and we cannot say that fire creates or generates heat. Sankara gives us an inimitable example when he compares the Mahatmas and the touch of joy they lend to the world with the spring season. When spring comes, it does not court every tree to bring forth its flowers, nor does it reach the world and canvas the moon to the brighter, the sky to be clearer and cleaner, the grass to be thicker and every heart to be more joyous. The presence of spring and concomitant conditions are complementary. The one cannot be without the other. Similarly, it is for the Mahatma to spread knowledge and cheer around him, and whenever true seekers reach him, they are irresistibly drawn into his orbit to bask in the warmth of his personality. The poetic suggestion is that he, reveling in his own experience, is one who unasked helps others to cross the swords of delusions and sorrow. Therefore, to surrender to such a one, requesting him to save us from our misunderstandings, is to assure for ourselves a true liberation, almost a luxury linear to truth. Stanza number 38. अयं स्वभावः स्वतः एव यत्पर शर्मापनोदपर्वणं महात्मनां सुधांशुरेश स्वं कर्कश प्रभाति तप्तामवती अक्षितिं किल. Indeed, it is the nature of the magnanimous to help remove the troubles of others, even as the moon of its own accord cools the earth scorched by the flaming rays of the sun, does it not? This is another mellifluous verse to emphasize that the noble qualities of magnanimity, cheerfulness, etc. in a perfect master are natural and not the products of a self-tutored habit. Sankara compares a seer with the moon and directs our attention to the fact that the moon alone can and with effortless ease does cool the parched earth which gets baked in the burning rays of the sun. Nothing else can cool the earth so satisfactorily as moonlight. Also, there is no chance ever of the moonlight adding a single calorie of heat to the earth. The company of the wise is the surest remedy to cool down the bosom to a state of complete peace and happiness when it is in conflagration, fed by desires and hatreds, attachments and yearnings. In verse 34, we have been told that a disciple should, having approached a true master, please him with his service, humility, and surrender. Sankara has so far used 4 verses in praise of the masters to express the attitude of total surrender of the disciple to the teacher. In the following verses, we hear a definite and pointed request to the master to answer the seeker's doubt so that through his inspired discourses and explanations, the seeker may be lifted out of the ruts of wrong thinking. It is an elaborate metaphor so beautifully executed that its finish and grace remind us of some of the classical works in Sanskrit. Stanza number 39. Brahmanand Sanubhuti Kalitai Putah Susitariyuttaihi Yusmad Kal Sojittai Sroti Sukhvake Mrtihi Seche Santaptam Bhavtad Pada Vadhan Jwala Dhirenam Prabho Dhanyaste Bhavdikshan Akshan Gatehe Patri Kirta Svikirtaha. O Lord, thy nectarine speech honeyed by the elixiric bliss of Brahma, pure cooling is flowing in streams from thy lips as from a water jug and pleasing to the ear. Do thou shower upon me who am tormented by earthly afflictions as by the tongues of a forest fire. Blessed are those who have received even a passing glance from thy eyes, accepting them under thy protection. Sanskrit metaphors cannot be contained in the embrace of the English vocabulary, and however much we try to translate them, they read as a confused jumble of words. In this instance, Sankara, the philosopher, has taken up his pen to write in the style of a kavya, a chiseled poem of exquisite beauty, depth and serenity, both in diction and cadence. When we carefully open up the various metaphors and discard the literary embellishments, all it says is, have pity on me, master, and teach me the method of transcending the world and its sorrows. Stanza number 40. Katham treyam bhavasindhumetam kava gatirme katmo salupaya janene kinchit kirpayao mam prabhu sansar dukh aksti matnashwa. How to cross this ocean of relative existence? What is to be my ultimate destination? Which of the many means should I adopt? I know nothing of these, O Lord. Save me and describe in all detail how to end the misery of this life in the finite. This is the type of question the student should ask when he approaches the master after having served him long enough and perfectly tuned up to him. These questions in themselves speak volumes of clear thinking and logical conclusions which the student has reached of his own accord. He has lived intelligently his life of varied experiences and has evaluated it correctly. He has neither despaired because of the unsurmountable difficulties experienced by him, nor is he ready to make any compromise with the truth. He has analyzed his experiences in life and has come to the conclusion that finite objects cannot give him anything but finite satisfaction. He has looked within himself and has estimated correctly his own demands in life as nothing short of infinite perfection, which alone can yield to him infinite happiness. He wants to know from the Master how he can come to experience the infinite and thereby gain a complete transcendence of the finite. Hence he asks, how can I cross this ocean of relative existence? Unless one somehow or the other fulfills this self-evolution and reaches the portals of the infinite and experiences the real, one wonders as to what would be his ultimate destination. The question therefore does not necessarily mean that he is ignorant of what the destination would be. In fact, it is a dreadful premonition of the consequences of getting entangled in the finite world of desires, excitements, and endless responsibilities of satisfying each nerve-tickling unless he experiences the transcendental. Though he has come to an independent conclusion about the life he is living, and though he knows the goal, yet he feels unsure as to what exactly is the method by which he can end his delusions and reach the goal. The student has already read a lot of the science of life as expounded in the literature on religion, and he finds therein different methods of self-perfection prescribed. He wants to know from the Guru what exactly should be the path for him. Through a process of trial and error, one can for oneself find the right path, but it is more convenient and indeed a sacred blessing if one can have a true teacher to show the correct path of self-development. Therefore, the student asks, which of the means should I adopt? The expression "I know nothing" is not the student's dull-witted confession of ignorance, but it is an expression of modesty and devotion and reverence for the teacher. Stanza number 41. Tatha vadantam sharnagatam svam sansar dava nal pat pat aptam niriksha karunne sadri drishtuva dada bhritim sahasa mahatma. As he speaks afflicted by and seeking protection from the conflagration of the fire of sansar, the noble teacher looks at him in all pity and kindness and spontaneously bestows upon him protection from fear. Just as the Shastra lays down a code of behavior for the student with equal emphasis does it formulate laws for the teacher. There is a school of thinkers in Vedanta which believes that a perfect master is beyond laws, that he is a law unto himself, that not even the Vedas dare lay down codes of morality or rules of behavior for the perfect master. This does not mean that he is free from all moral obligations and ethical norms of behavior. No laws are applicable to him in the sense that because of his perfection, whatever he does will automatically become the code of perfect action. He cannot go wrong because his actions can never be low and egocentric. He has surrendered himself completely to the Supreme, and as such the only music that can emanate from his action is the music of the spirit. The very Shastras and Vedas are the codified expressions of the perfect behavior of such masters. Therefore, such critics who would object to the interpretation that the verse lays down codes for the gurus would be right. What is meant here by laws prescribed for the teachers? It is merely a restatement of what they would do under given circumstances. If they are true to their full experience of perfect tranquility, they will not run away from sincere seekers but unquestioningly oblige them with their vast experience and knowledge. To him who has approached the master with infinite fears, the master should immediately give a message of hope, assuring him that there is nothing for him to fear, nor is there cause for despair. Later on, we shall find that when the student crystallizes his thoughts into definite questions, the master also uses less sweeping generalizations and gives more and more definite and pointed answers. Stanza number 42. Vidwan se tasma उपसत्ति नियो से मुमुक्षुवे साधु यथोक्त कारिणे प्रशांत चित्ताय समानि वताय तत्वोपदेशम कृपई कुर्यात. To him who in his anxiety for liberation has sought the protection of the teacher, who abides by scriptural injunctions, who has a serene mind and who is endowed with tranquility, the master should pour out his knowledge with utmost kindness. The teacher is advised to initiate the student only after testing whether the knowledge given out will take root in his heart. This testing of the student and the qualities for a spiritual seeker are enumerated in Vedanta, not for the purpose of denying this benefit to any single individual. It is out of sheer kindness that Shruti prescribes these qualifications for Unless an individual has these mental and intellectual qualities, it will be a sheer waste of the teacher's knowledge, and its concomitant strength will be misplaced in an imperfect student, as he will make use of it for his own annihilation as well as the annihilation of the world. When an unscrupulous man comes to power in any country, we know what a menace he can be to society. If the student has a burning anxiety for liberation from his known weaknesses, if he is meek and ready to follow the prescribed path and the necessary discipline, then the teacher is asked to initiate him into the path of knowledge. These qualities are no doubt quite essential, but we must also note that they are all external attributes of daring and readiness to act. Since spiritual seeking is not the march of an army, a mere outward discipline in itself will not suffice. It requires of the student some mental and intellectual qualities, and therefore it is insisted that he must be well disciplined in his sense impulses and equally well balanced in his mental makeup. Even if a man is well restrained and his mind does not get agitated with low thoughts of sensuousness, the philosophy being so subtle, it is not possible for a layman to understand it immediately in all its deep significance. If the teacher is impatient and has not the kindness to repeat even for the 100th time, if need be, with equal love and consideration, the student will not be benefited by the teacher. So the teacher should take up the job of initiating the student with extreme kindness. He should not forget that he himself was once a seeker and has his own quota of doubts and difficulties. If the teacher is not divinely kind and godly in his sympathies, the relationship between the teacher and the taught will be strained, and the student will never find proper guidance for his progress on the spiritual path. The word Kripa has unfortunately no corresponding word in English. It is not merely kindness, nor is it a superficial sympathy. At best, we can say that it is an attitude of sympathy cooked in kindness, honeyed with love, and served on golden platters of understanding. A man of bad temper and extreme impatience, lacking in sympathy, tolerance, and kindness, cannot ever become a true teacher, no matter what his claims to nobility and depth of experience are. Stanza number 43. Sri Guru Vach Ma Bhaste Vidvastam Nastapaye Sansar Sindho Tarin Satupaye Yenev Yata Yatyo Separam Tamev Margam Tau Nirdoshami. The Guru said, "Fear not, O learned one, there is no danger for you, there is a way to cross over this ocean of change. I shall instruct you in the very path by which the ancient rishis walked to the beyond. The perfect disciple, having duly reached the master's feet, expresses his fears that he will never be able to grow out of the disturbing concepts of time and space which provide for him experiences of unending sorrows of finitude. Things change in their relationship both to time and place. Objects remaining the same, they, with reference to different conditions of time and place, react upon the same individual differently. These pluralistic experiences produce agitation in the mind, and that is indicated in verse 40 by the word Sansara Dukha. When the student reached the master, he despairingly requested him, condescend to save me, O Lord, and describe in full how to put an end to the misery of this relative existence. The teacher now gives the answer to the student's question. Psychologically, when a questioner is extremely upset because of some fear or agitation in his mind, he is not in a mood to receive any philosophical idea, even when elaborately explained. Therefore, a sympathetic teacher, if he knows what he is about, will first of all pacify the student and give him hope and spiritual solace. Then alone would he become fit to receive the logical conclusions arrived at by a fully rational philosophy. Most fittingly, then the master, with the paternal consideration and love, here assures the student that what he fears is only a myth. This, however, is not a false assurance, an idle hope given to the student just to save him from imaginary fears. The master can clearly see the spiritual destiny and the divine perfection which lie in the innermost core of the disciple. Change is only at the level of the mind and intellect. But when the pure consciousness, eternal and infinite, functions through these equipments, it gathers unto itself a delusive vision which interprets a world in terms of change and plurality. Therefore, danger or death are not the phenomena of the spirit, but only the hallucinations of the mind. Therefore, with all confidence, the teacher assures the student there is no death for you. The theory may be quite consoling and the assertion hopeful, but if there is no practical method to realize it in life, it would be futile and hence there would be no place for it in Hindu philosophy. But the teacher asserts here there is a way of crossing this sorrowful ocean of sansar. Now, this is not the theory born out of the teacher's own intellect, but it is the path hallowed by the footprints of the ancient seers who had themselves crossed over from the finite to the infinite. We are assured that what is to follow now in the teacher's discourse is an exhaustive discussion upon this sacred path of self-realization, the authenticity of which has been proclaimed by an endless array of brilliant rishis of yore. Stanza number 44. Astupayo mahan kaschin sansar bhainasaneh तेन तीर्थवा भवाम्भोभिदम परमानंदम मापस्मै. There is a supreme means by which you can put an end to the fear of relative existence. By that you will cross the sea of samsara and attain supreme bliss. A psychological assurance is again given. Here is a flood of love that pours out from the heart of the teacher. The repetition is not merely for the sake of emphasis but also to clearly reveal the infinite consideration and divine sympathy which the teacher has for the student. It is the one most important insistence of Vedanta that there is a sovereign means by which our misunderstanding and consequent false evaluation of life can be completely crushed, culminating in right understanding. This method is explained in the following verse. Verse number 45. वेदांत अर्थ विचारेण जायते ज्ञान उत्तमम तेना अत्यंत कंस संसार दुख नाशो भवत्यनम. The highest knowledge arises from the sincere contemplation upon the meaning of the Upanishad mantras. By this knowledge, immediately a total annihilation of all sorrows born of the perception of change takes place. The previous verse assures us of a sovereign means by which we could cross over the world of our finite experiences. Now we are given a definition in the form of a clear declaration of what exactly that is. Constant vichara upon the meaning of Vedantic truths leads one to true knowledge. Vichara is a term which has no corresponding word in English. Words like thinking, contemplating, reasoning, analyzing, etc. do not fully express the meaning of technique of vichara. Vichara comprises all these in synthesis along with certain essential mental and intellectual discipline. With mind and intellect trained and made steady, a seeker rips upon the Upanishad declarations one by one and comes to experience the implications and the deeper suggestiveness of each mantra. This process is called vichara. The nectar in a flower is always secreted in its innermost chambers. It's, it's an enchanted lover, the honey bee, which coats it with ardor and adoration, alone can scent the nectar and groping through its dusty exterior reach the honey treasured in the blossom. Similarly, in the garden of Vedanta are the flowers of Upanishad mantras. The sweetness of each is secreted not in its outer words, fascinating though they may be, but lies hidden in the pulsating bosom, where its immortal heart throbs with the thrilling ecstasy of love, fulfilled and perfection experienced. This divine secret is treasured in the sacred heart of each mantra, and a seeker can reach this meaning only through his prepared mind and intellect. The process by which the acutely intellectual and divinely sympathetic head and heart of a seeker come to live in their subjective experience, the strangely enchanting, voiceless cadence arising from the rishis heart is called vichara. During moments of meditation, when we strive hard to experience the meaning of Upanishad mantras, we are in the realm of vichara. Through vichara, our misunderstandings about ourselves, which are the expressions of our ignorance, are removed. And when ignorance is banished, knowledge shines forth. With this right knowledge, instantaneously all the delusive sorrows of sansar end. After waking up from our dream, the moment we realize our waking state identity, all the sorrows created in us due to our dream identification and the dream world, and instantaneously on the rediscovery that our spiritual nature is pure knowledge, uncontaminated by any trace of ignorance, we come to enjoy our divine heritage of perfection and bliss ever beyond even the penumbra of any misery thereafter. Stanza number 46. Shraddha Bhakti Dhyan Yog Munmuksho Mukt Hetun Vakti Sakshat Tergihi Yo Va Atasvev Tishthamushya Moksho Vidya Kalpit De Bandhat. Faith, devotion, and the practice of meditation, these are mentioned in the songs of Shruti as the chief factors that help a seeker to attain liberation. Whoever pursues these is liberated from the bondage of the body, which is a projection mysteriously accomplished by his spiritual ignorance. The technique of vichara has been exhaustively analyzed and insisted upon. The power to do vichara is the very fuel which helps the spiritual vehicle to maintain its motion. What constitutes vichara has also been explained. Here we are told of the practices we must follow strictly and sincerely so that our capacity to do vichara may be increased and the vichara itself be rendered most efficient. Shraddha and bhakti encourage and increase dhyana, one's meditative poise, and these three together constitute the entire technique of self-development as visualized by the rishis. It is interesting to note how each preceding factor strengthens and nourishes the succeeding factor. Faith increases devotion, and in a man of faith and devotion, meditation is easily accomplished. Here we must clearly understand faith in the same sense as has been described earlier. So also we must not identify bhakti with the cheap, decadent meaning which we in our ignorance have given it. It is to be rightly understood as our identification with our concept of our ideal. When thus we are truly aided by faith and devotion, we are able to meditate properly, and through meditation we come to realize our true nature. Having experienced our divine glory, we shall no more misconceive ourselves to be the limited creatures identifying with our matter vestures. False identifications are created by the ignorance of our spiritual glory. The body, mind, and intellect are all superimpositions upon the glorious self, and yet we consider them to be real and permanent. These superimpositions are the real bondages upon us, and because of them we feel the limitations of the mortal. He who abides in faith, devotion, and meditation in his inner experience comes to recognize his infinite nature of bliss and perfection, and thus gets released from the bondage of matter. Stanza number 47. Agyan Yog Paramatma Hayyanam Bandhastate Evim Sansirti Tayo Vivekadi Bodhavahi Ragyan Karat Pardhestmulam. It is indeed through contact with ignorance that you, who are the Supreme Self, experience yourself to be under the bondage of the no self, not self. From this misunderstanding alone proceed the worlds of births and deaths. All the effects of ignorance, root and branch, are burnt down by the blaze of knowledge which arises from discrimination between these two, the self and the not self. What causes us the supreme self that we really are to suffer these bondages, and what exactly is that which compels us thereafter to struggle hard to regain our true divine glory through the delicate process of self-rediscovery is explained here. Just as a ghost vision is possible on a wayside post when there is ignorance of the post, so too it is the ignorance of the self in us that gives birth to the thought flow called the mind. The mind projects the sense organs at the level of the body, and beyond them it gives us the apparent perception of the five great elements, Panch Mahabhuta, and the world of sense objects. The pure consciousness or life gets reflected in the pool of thoughts, and in our preoccupation with our mental life, we take ourselves to be this egocentric jiva, which is nothing but life conditioned by our own thoughts in a given pattern of time and place, the sorrows of life, the limitations of the equipments, the imperfections of the world, the concept of likes and dislikes, the pools of pleasures and pains, the shattering concepts of merit and sin, all these are affected by this ego. The ego ends upon its own funeral pyre, lit by itself, which blazes into a conflagration of knowledge, the fire arising from a constant discrimination between the real and the unreal, between the self and the not self, between the spirit and matter, is fanned into a blazing brilliance through steady vichara, in which all the effects of ignorance, along with the very root of their cause, spiritual ignorance, are burnt down. When ego ends, we realize our real nature to be intrinsic, intrinsically divine, eternally free, and absolute bliss. This is immortality. Where there is light, darkness cannot be. Where knowledge has come to rule, ignorance must quit. Where the cause has been eliminated, the effect cannot remain. Where ignorance has ended all its effect, the five kosas constituting the three bodies, the three planes of consciousness, the realms of pains made by of sense objects, feelings and ideas must end instantaneously, totally. Stanza number 48. Questions of the disciple. Sisya Uvac. Kripaya Sriyutam Swami Prasanno Oyam Kriyate Maya Yadutrammehem Srutva Kirtarthaya Shameh Bhavan Mukhat. The Shishya said, kindly listen, O Master, to the questions that I now raise. Hearing their answers from your lips, I shall feel entirely satisfied. The entire Viveka Chudamani has by now changed from being a textbook into an outstanding poem, a literary masterpiece, because while writing this great work, Sankara often excels the philosopher in him and becomes a poet to splash the entire work with brilliant colors of pure literary genius. Anyone with a poetic temperament and a taste for music cannot but feel enchanted by the ring of the mellifluous words used in the construction of each verse. There is a perfect mastery in this literary artistic garland of beauty and rhythm. In his Bhashya, Sankara was too preoccupied with his philosophical theory depicting his vision of oneness, but when he took up leisurely his experienced pen to produce this work, indeed a crushed jewel both in style and substance, Sankara the poet blended with Sankara the philosopher. He has a special niche in the poet's corner and will perhaps be remembered as the noblest poet who ever wielded a pen to bring about a cultural revival. The very conversational style of this verse relieves the monotony of the philosophy and brings into its arid fields the touch of the human heart and the thrills of a warm, pulsating life. Here, an ignorant student reaches a seer who is the fountain of knowledge and, through a process of discussion, tries to attune himself to his teacher for walking out of the dark ignorance into the master's brilliant domain. It is evident that a student silently sitting like a statue even before the greatest of teachers and for an endless period of time can have no benefit of any spiritual evolution. The student has to rub his ideas and thoughts against the experienced head and heart of the teacher and gain for himself a polish and a fragrance at once divine and perfect. Discussion is the heart of satsang. The Rudraksham Mala remained nearest to the heart of Sankara all through his life for a period much longer than his disciple Trotka and Sureswara remained with him, but both these disciples have been immortalized, and as long as we remember Acharya Sankara, we shall, with equal devotion and reverence, remember these two not only as his great disciples but as God-men themselves. The poor Rudrakshan Mala, the stones in the inner walls of the Sanctorum, even the greatest temple that have faced the Lord for years, have remained stones even after 1,000 years. Hundreds of devotees, on the other hand, who have stood even for a few moments before the altar, have reacted to the divine atmosphere and have been lifted from their sense of finitude. They have left the temple enveloped in the joys of fuller existence, lived in the process of greater evolution. Mentally and intellectually, it is necessary that we come to wrestle with the mind and intellect of the Master in order to develop inner health and beauty and vitality. That is why this text has a great message for the world of seeker. And at this stage I complete this video. Next video number 5 will start with stanza number 49 of Viveka Chudamani. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar. Thank you.